This is the tale of how my life took an unexpected turn, and my name is Sophia. After graduating from law school, I worked as a lawyer's assistant at a major trading firm. The company's headquarters were a confusing jumble of departments and cubicles. While attempting to locate the copy room on my third day, I literally ran into Ethan from the buying department. "Whoa there," he said with a giggle while supporting me. "You have to be brand new." "My name is Ethan." "Sophia," I said as my cheeks began to heat. "I'm the new lawyer's assistant, and yes, I'm a bit lost." Ethan had twinkling eyes. "So, Sophia, think of me as your personal navigator. Where are you going?" I became buddies with Ethan right then and there. We used to have lunch together, and he would always find a reason to come by my section. Our relationship developed into something more as the weeks went by. Ethan turned to face me one Friday evening as we were leaving work. "Sophia, would you want to go out to dinner? Just around the block is this amazing Italian restaurant." After a little pause, I grinned. "I'd love to." It was at that supper that our love relationship began. We dated for a year, our relationship getting closer every day. Ethan was humorous, supportive, and kind, everything I'd ever wanted in a companion. Ethan proposed to me on our first anniversary. 6 months later, in a modest ceremony attended by our closest friends and family, we were married. Margaret, Ethan's mother, was present but didn't appear very excited. She had always been a little aloof from me, and at the reception I noticed her murmuring to a cousin. She said, "He could have done better," without aware I was listening. There are so many successful, rich girls out there, but no, he had to choose her. Her reasons hurt, but I made an effort not to let them take away from my joy. All that mattered was that Ethan loved me. We made the decision to buy an apartment after the wedding. My grandmother had left me a sizable inheritance, so Ethan and I were able to divide the expense equally. Our new home was a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment in a lovely area, ideal for our first years together. After a year of marriage, we had established a cozy routine in our lives. We were both getting along well at work, and Ethan and I enjoyed spending our weekends traveling and having leisurely mornings. Everything was ok till the morning I felt strange. I dismissed it at first as just a straightforward stomach ailment, but as the days went by and the nausea didn't go away, a tiny voice in the back of my mind murmured a possibility I hadn't thought about. Am I carrying a child? I made the decision to confirm things one morning. During my lunch break, I sneaked into the workplace restroom and bought a pregnancy test. I had never waited for so long in my life as those 2 minutes. My heart skipped a beat when I finally glanced at the stick and saw the 2 pink lines. I made the decision to tell Ethan the news in surprise that evening. I got his favorite takeout and lit candles on the table. He raised his eyebrows as soon as he entered. He hung up his coat and inquired, "What's the occasion?" I inhaled deeply. "Ethan, I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant." There was an unbearable quiet for a while. Ethan displayed a range of emotions on his face, including astonishment, perplexity, and disappointment. With a tight voice, he eventually questioned, "Are you sure?" I nodded, feeling less excited than before. "I completed an exam today. It's advantageous." Ethan took a seat and ran his fingers through his hair. "Don't you think it's too soon, Sophia? We've barely been together for a year. Not even enough time for us to appreciate each other yet. Perhaps we ought to weigh our choices." It seemed as if someone had drenched me in freezing water. "Choices? Do you advocate having an abortion?" Ethan shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "It's only something to consider. Both of us are advancing our professions. Everything would change with the birth of a baby." With trembling hands, I got up. What I'm hearing amazes me. This is Ethan, our child. I'm holding on to it. The days that followed were stressful. The elephant in the room was becoming bigger by the minute as Ethan and I danced around one another. I made the decision to visit a doctor in the hopes that Ethan would be persuaded otherwise. My expectations weren't met by the visit. After the checkup, the doctor, Dr. Patel, a kind-looking lady, gave me a worried expression. She whispered softly, "Mrs. Thompson, I'm afraid your pregnancy is high risk. You'll need to be very careful. Less stress, more rest, and plenty of relaxation. My world began to tilt. What does that mean for the baby? Dr. Patel gave me a handshake. It implies that we must keep a careful eye on you. Miscarriage is a possibility, but it can be reduced with the right treatment. Dazed, I walked out of the clinic. When my own spouse didn't want our child, how was I meant to feel less stressed? I came home to find Ethan in front of the TV. He didn't take his eyes off the TV as he said, "How did it go?" I inhaled deeply. The risk of the pregnancy is high. I need to relax more and get less stressed. I will inquire about working remotely. Ethan tightened his jaw. Sophia, I really believe that we ought to reevaluate this. It's still possible to give up. I interrupted him. Ethan, I've already made my choice. I'm having this baby, whether or not you're on board. I was nervous when I went to see my employer, Mr. Jameson, the next morning. I asked to work remotely and gave an explanation of my circumstances. I was relieved that he understood and agreed right away. Katrina, your health and the health of your unborn child come first. He reaffirmed politely. We'll set you up with everything you need to work from home. A brief sensation of lightness lifted from my shoulders. Ethan's response to my telling him about the agreement was less than stellar. Great, he murmured. So you'll be home all day doing what exactly? I looked at him, astonished. Ethan, I'm working, as well as looking for our child and myself. I felt more alone than ever when he scoffed and turned to go. I immersed myself into my work and getting ready for the baby as the weeks went by. I started eating better, did prenatal yoga, and read every pregnant book I could find. Ethan, meantime, became increasingly aloof. He began to remain late at work, saying he had to make up for my lack of productivity. He would mention work travels on the weekends that he had never discussed previously. I would try to discuss it with him, but he would ignore me. The doorbell rang one evening when I was laying the table for supper. It was Margaret, Ethan's mother. She reaffirmed, her grin falling just short of her eyes. I thought I'd drop by and see how you're doing. I tried not to notice her scrutinizing glance as it passed over my expanding tummy as I ushered her inside. Ethan informed me that you are now working from home, she stated as she took a seat on the couch. I gave a nod. Yes, the doctor advised it for the baby's health. You know, Sophia, a child isn't always the blessing people make it out to be, especially when it comes at the wrong time. My hackles stood up. Margaret, there is never an ideal moment to have a baby. We'll get by. Leaning forward, she lowered her voice. Are you certain of that? Ethan is a youthful, driven individual. He wants a companion who will help him advance professionally, not hinder him. Don't let him second-guess his decision. A few days later, when Ethan was getting ready for work, I smelled something strange. A lovely flowery perfume that I knew wasn't mine. With my head racing, I froze. New cologne. I tried to seem casual as I asked. After a moment of seeming shocked, Ethan shrugged. Oh, that's right. Received it as a sample. Enjoy it. I feigned a laugh. It's nice. However, I couldn't get rid of the uneasy feeling I had as he was leaving for work. It wasn't a sample, yet it wasn't cologne either. The perfume, an expensive women's scent, stuck to my husband's shirt like a silent indictment. After Ethan departed for work the following morning, I picked up my phone trembling. I combed through my contacts till I came upon my cousin Daniel's number. He was an investigator with a detective agency, and he was the one who could assist me find the truth. Hey, Kath. Daniel gave a happy response. What's up? I inhaled deeply. Daniel, please assist me. It has to do with Ethan. I described everything, including the scent, the late hours, and the business travels. When I was done, my voice cracked. Daniel, I believe he is having an affair. I must ascertain the truth. When Daniel answered, his voice was soft. Kath, I'll investigate. Please give me a couple weeks. I immersed myself into my work and the baby's preparations in the interim. I tried everything to keep my mind occupied, including ordering a cot and looking at colors and watches for the nursery. However, The nagging anxiety in my stomach persisted. 3 torturous weeks later, Daniel finally phoned. In a serious tone, he said, "Can you meet me at the cafe on 5th Street?" After an hour, I took a seat in a calm area of the cafe across from Daniel. A manila envelope slipped across the table by him. Softly, "I'm sorry, Sophia," he murmured. "But you were right." I shook my hands and opened the envelope. Dozens of photographs were contained therein. Ethan was with the same woman, young, blonde, and gorgeous, in every single place he went, including restaurants, hotels, and parks. "Her name is Jessica," said Daniel. "She recently started working in Ethan's department. They have been dating for a month or more at the very least." I was numbed when I looked at the pictures. How could he do this? My question was hardly audible above a whisper. Daniel extended his hand to grasp my hand. "There's more information. Ethan said to you that he will be out on business this weekend, correct?" I nodded, fearing the worst for now. Daniel declared, "He lied. He's with her right now at the Westview Hotel, room 412. The world appeared to be skewed toward me. The journey home via cab was a haze. I was taken aback to see my mother-in-law, Margaret, in the living room when I eventually stammered through my front door while holding the package with the embarrassing images. "Oh, Catherine," she murmured, sounding so falsely lovely. "I had planned to come tidy the house while Ethan was away on business. You don't do much around here these days, Lord knows." Her Ethans were the last straw, above all else. I yelled, "He's not on a business trip. He's with his mistress right now." Margaret's eyes expanded, then narrowed again. "Well, can you blame him if he is? And I'm not saying he is. Look at you, you've lost yourself, you're constantly unwell, and you don't even give him any thought anymore. The entire pregnancy was an error. Except for you, nobody wants this baby." A part of me broke. I screamed, "Get out. Get out of my house right now." After a moment of disbelief, Margaret sneered, with joy, "Don't come to me in tears when Ethan goes." I sat on the floor, my thoughts spinning from Margaret's hurtful comments as the front door shut behind her. But as the first shock subsided, resolve emerged as the new feeling. I couldn't watch helplessly as my spouse deceived me. I got up and grabbed my vehicle keys with trembling hands. Ethan was somewhere I knew, and I was going to find him. My thoughts during the disorienting trip to the Westview Hotel were a jumbled mixture of hurt, fury, and disbelief. I was standing in front of room 412 before I realized it. I heard a woman's high-pitched giggle and Ethan's booming laugh coming from within. Despite the knot in my gut, I steeled myself and knocked on the door. A happy woman's voice cried out, "Must be room service." My heart felt like it was about to explode from my chest. When the door opened, Ethan was standing there and his smile turned to stone upon seeing me. "Sophia," he stumbled out, obviously taken aback. "What are you doing here?" As soon as I shoved past him and entered the room, I saw the blonde woman hurriedly covering herself with a sheet. "Jessica," my assumption was. "Ethan," I said in a shaky voice. "How could you?" To my surprise, though, Ethan's expression became sterner rather than he tried to explain or apologize. "How was it possible for me? Catherine, how could you? I haven't been fulfilled by you in months. That kid is everything that matters to you." His Ethans felt like a punch to the body. My eyesight grew blurry as I stumbled back. Ethan went on, his voice oozing with contempt. "You no longer look for yourself. Observe Jessica," he said to his lover. "It is the ideal appearance for a woman. You used to be like that." Jessica decided to say something at that very time, her voice sickly sweet. "You ought to be appreciative of us. We are, being thoughtful and waiting for you to give birth before Ethan departs. Here, we are the sincere ones." I was hearing things that I couldn't believe. Abdominal pain shot through me like a knife beyond anything I'd ever experienced. The corners of my vision darkened, and I started to feel unsteady. "Ethan," I said, grabbing at him as I went down, Please call an ambulance." However, Jessica and Ethan had already started packing and moving. They took hold of my arms violently and hauled me out into the corridor. When I was lying on the ground, Ethan walked over me and stated, "You brought this on yourself." Their withdrawing figures were the last thing I saw as I passed out, abandoning me in my hour of need. I was startled to wake up to the worried look of a hotel maid watching me. I was in terrible agony in my belly, and my entire body hurt. "Are you all right, ma'am?" With a worried tone, the maid reaffirmed, "I've called an ambulance." I made a feeble moaning sound as I attempted to speak. A whirl of sirens, bright lights, and anxious voices characterized the following several hours. I slipped in and out of consciousness, but my constant worry was for my child. My final conscious moment was while lying in a hospital bed. A physician stood at my bedside, her expression solemn. "Mrs. Thompson," she murmured, "I truly apologize. You lost the baby, despite our best efforts." Her comments struck me like a punch to the body. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of what had transpired sink in, hot tears running down my cheeks. My sorrow gave way to rage since Ethan, his mother, and Jessica were all to blame for this. Their greed and wickedness had murdered my baby. Upon my release, I headed straight to our apartment. I carefully and methodically put everything that belonged to Ethan into boxes. I then took a car to Margaret's house, threw the boxes in her driveway without any ceremony, and walked right up to her front door. With a fake concern on her face, Margaret opened it. "Catherine, my darling," told me what had transpired. "What a shame," she reaffirmed, making absolutely no apologies. I shoved past her and entered the home. "Margaret," said it. "You don't care, I know that." She instantly stopped doing the deed. "Well, what were you hoping for? Really, it's for the best. You may now file for divorce from Ethan and vacate that place." I looked at her, astonished. "Go outside. I own half of the apartment." Margaret dismissively waved her hand. "Information. You are aware that Ethan has very good lawyers. They'll see to it that he receives everything. Catherine, you are unfit to be his wife. For him, you're too basic. It would be ideal if you simply walked out. Don't create a scene." My hands clenched at my sides. I growled, "I will not go quietly. I will fight for everything, including the flat. I will not let your son and his mistress to escape punishment for the murder of my kid." Margaret's face flushed a little, but she perked right up. "Kate, don't be so emotional. These events take place. Nobody is to blame." I had a notion as I turned to go. One last look at Margaret. "Margaret, tell me something. If you lost your child, how would you feel? If someone took your baby away from you out of malice and selfishness?" Margaret seemed for the first time really rattled. Speechless, she opened and closed her mouth many times. With a somber sense of satisfaction, I nodded. That's what I thought. I contacted my former college buddy Alex, who was now a prosperous divorce attorney, with renewed vigor. He didn't hesitate to accept my explanation of the issue. Alex told me, "I've got your back, Catherine. We'll make sure you get what you deserve." The court hearings took a long time. Jessica and Ethan put on a unified front, accusing me of being a psychologically disturbed lady who made up lies after I lost my baby and denying having an affair. "Your Honor, it is evident that Mrs. Thompson is experiencing delusions due to her tragic loss," stated Ethan's attorney. "There's no affair, only the delusions of a bereaved widow." However, Alex was ready. He offered the evidence we had obtained, and the judge nodded. Alex handed the photos to the court and said, "I'd like to submit these as evidence." The features of Jessica and Ethan paled as the courtroom hummed. And then, the masterstroke. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have video evidence from the Westview Hotel." As the video played, I could see Jessica and Ethan laughingly dragging my lifeless body into the corridor before abandoning me. Shouts of surprise filled the courtroom. The hotel maid finally testified, telling how she discovered me unconscious and dialed for assistance. By the time she was done, neither Jessica nor Ethan had a sympathetic face in the room. The judge rendered a prompt and definitive decision. After considering the evidence, I find in Mrs. Thompson's favor. For mental anguish, Mr. Thompson will provide monetary compensation, and the marital assets will be shared evenly. I felt like a burden had lifted off my shoulders as we exited the courthouse. It was hardly an absolute triumph. Nothing could save my kid, but at least it was a beginning. I poured myself into starting again in the ensuing weeks. I started going to a therapist, acquired a little apartment, and gradually became better. I was just getting settled when my phone rang, and there was an unexpected caller. She said, "Margaret," in a voice that was unusually tentative. "Can we meet, please?" Despite all my instincts to say no, curiosity took the lead. "All right," I said. "The cafe on 5th Street tomorrow at 2. I nearly missed Margaret when I walked into the cafe. The woman who always looked well was gone. Someone who appeared to be broken sat in her place. "Catherine," she said in a shaky voice, "I was wrong about everything." She continued by describing how Jessica had used deception to turn Ethan against his own mother. They intended to give Margaret nothing when they sold her house. "I've heard rumors," Margaret said, blotting away her tears. "They're planning something at the company, something illegal." "Sophia, I know I have no right to ask, but you're the only one who can stop them." I sat back in disbelief. There was a part of me that wanted to turn away and let them ruin each other. However, when Margaret brought up the company, my company, I felt compelled to take action. Examining the company's records wasn't as intimidating for me because of my legal experience. I went through purchase orders, financial records, and contracts for days on end. I slowly built a disconcerting image. Ethan's department often paid far more than the going rates for the items. I initially believed it may be incapacity, but as I looked more closely, I saw a pattern. The same few suppliers always stood to gain from the inflated prices. Additionally, Jessica joined the firm around the time when the disparities began. However, the worst was still to come. Plans for a significant deal that might make or break the company's fiscal year were revealed to me. Ethan was going to buy inferior products at exorbitant costs, which would be detrimental to the company's earnings and standing. Accompanied by an abundance of proof, I strode into the CEO's workspace. Mr. Jameson raised his head, startled to see me. "Sophia, what's this about?" "Sir," I said steadily, "I've uncovered something you need to see immediately." I arranged what I had discovered for the following hour. With every minute that went by, Mr. Jameson's expression got gloomier. "At last," he replied, This is unbelievable. I really appreciate you bringing this to our notice, Sophia. We will immediately begin a thorough inquiry." The following several weeks flew by. I was asked to testify and provide evidence in the midst of an internal inquiry. Awaiting the results, Jessica and Ethan were placed on suspension. The proof was unquestionable after everything was said and done. Following the company's multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Ethan and Jessica, criminal charges were shortly brought. Knowing they would never be in positions of authority again, I observed their convictions from the courtroom. Mr. Jameson summoned me into his office once more after that. He was grinning this time. "Sophia, the work you did on this case was excellent. We would like to present you with this award for outstanding service to the organization, as well as a promotion to senior lawyer." I felt both proud and a little relieved to have been vindicated as I left his office with a plaque and a new title. Months afterward, my phone rang. Margaret was the one. She murmured, "Sophia," in a voice suffused with passion. "I heard what you did, I guess. The corporation was spared by you. My house was rescued by you. About you, I was so mistaken. Is there a chance you'll ever forgive me?" "Margaret," I mutely answered, "I'm sorry. However, I believe it would be better if we both go on with our lives apart." "I get it," she said. "Thank you, Catherine, for everything." I could really feel a chapter of my life ending as I hung up the phone. I would always be in anguish, a subtle looking for the life I had imagined for myself and the kid I had lost. But I had also unearthed a power inside myself that I had no idea existed.